very sick, you got to have a place to go, and that's
Right.
That's why, incidentally.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
for
much.
the call.
Yeah, a lot of other towns or counties are going through the same situation up here, especially up here, and deciding whether they can keep their or sell their homes. Most of them are not losing that much money, they tell me, and very few of them have chosen to sell the home. So it looks like you're running kind of upstream here. I hope so anyway.
Well, I'm also being told that there's not a county in New York State that hasn't looked at doing something with their home.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where you got your information, and I've gotten mine from meeting with Marcus and Milchap. But
who are incidentally being investigated for fraud in 3 states.
Well, now that I did check on that also. That Marcus and Milchap is a big entity.
Yeah.
And after the last program, I did talk to the county executive, and there was some subsidiary of Marcus and Milchap. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the 2 people that are here, because they have different groups that handle different things. There was some subsidiary that is being investigated.
Yeah, New York is one of those checking them out, right?
Pardon me, yes, that's the case.
New York State.
But there's really nothing to do with these 2 individuals that are working with us on a county home, except they work for Marcus Milchap.
I see. Okay, that's good news.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the figures are under question. The loss is under question by a number of people. I could mention names, but I won't do that. But they seem to be pretty well informed. The question is, how important is it for us to have that final resting place for our seniors who are sick, very sick and indigent, and whether we care. You know, we used to raise potatoes over there to help support it. Did you know that? You knew that. It used to be the county farm.
Well, that was a different location, but I had been to the county. They called it the poorhouse, I guess, is when, and that's great. They were
That's
raising,
what it is.
Yeah, and they were raising product there, and I can just remember going there as a child to visit someone. Yeah, and it's too bad they couldn't have kept it. That was a beautiful way of doing things.
Yeah, well, everybody pitched in, and they raised quite a bit of food for which they used, and at any rate, everything changes as time passes, Fred. And I do not, frankly, believe that you are out to screw the seniors. Yeah, that young lady exaggerated a bit,
right.
Although you seem to be very hot on selling the county home. You seem to be leaning that way. We'll put it that way, as is our friend Greg Edwards, who is a county exec. Let's hope that common sense prevails, and my hopeful, being a senior and possibly one who may be in ill health after I get off this program.
Yeah, well,
when I get through the parking lot, if I'm lucky, I want to have that final place where I can find a bed. You know.
Here again, I've had some people that are probably some are listening to this program. They've simply said, Fred, the county needs to be out of the nursing home business. And so I think there's probably more of my constituency, and that's the people that set me in this chair to talk to you this morning, feel as though, Fred, take a hard look at it, see what we can do to keep it. Here again, there's no way that we want to close that county home. But can it be done in private enterprise better, cheaper, and more cost effective to the Suffolk County taxpayers? That is a question that I'm in my mind rolling over. And
I can understand that. That is a position.
You know, and people will call this show probably about something else, and they'll say, well, the government shouldn't be running. The government can't run anything. Well, Chautauqua County's government.
So we're running cars pretty well.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that we're running.
The Office for the Aging.
Right, and there's things, you know, probably like 911 and the Sheriff Department and DPF that
and the slammer.
Really, we have to run, and that's always going to happen that way.
Yeah.
Is a county home something that we could privatize? Here again, I don't want those people left out in the cold.
Well, you know, some jurisdictions have actually been selling their jails.
Well, we only better work on one thing at a time, and if that's a possibility, more power to us. But right now, I think if we're to check with the sheriff, we've got a pretty full jail.
Yeah, well, it's jam-packed.
And that's a whole other issue.
$85,000 a day, a year, thank you very much, and for mostly pot and minor drug things, which are your own business.
Well, maybe we'll have to get into that discussion later,
right.
But pot is illegal.
Yeah, well, of course, and so was the women's voting, and so was releasing Negroes too. I mean,
but
there are a lot of antedated laws kicking around.
And I'll say this: we're going to have a public safety meeting this week. We've got the sheriff and Dave Bentley coming in to do a presentation on the drug task force, which I'm assuming will be in executive session, because very simply it has to deal with ongoing investigations that could jeopardize things.
Well, we're spending so much money on these raids and so, the minute there's a raid, there are other people right on the street. It's just a waste of taxpayers' money.
Well, I can see you and I'll probably have to disagree on that.
Oh, you think so, huh? Well, you think drugs are down now because of the raids?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I just don't think we want to legalize marijuana.
Really? Well, you and Randall Hearst, he's the one who got it illegalized. He legalized it in the 30s, and incidentally, just when they reversed the legalization of a big drug, alcohol, they of course illegalized alcohol, and that was a disaster. It put a huge money into the hands of the criminals, and along with that, they decided to legalize cocaine, which incidentally many famous world leaders have been using all their lives with no harmful effects, and so they continued that though. And at this point, there's more coke cheaper on the street than there ever was before. Same with marijuana. With all this big war, this huge war, which is costing you and me a lot of money, a lot of money. And who's making money? The lawyers.
See what you learn when you listen to this show?
The lawyers.
What a debate we can have.
Well, next week we're going to have a guy on from Fredonia in the philosophy department who wrote a long letter to the reason I'm interested in this is he wrote a long letter to the Dunkirk Observer pointing out that the marijuana laws are hysterically crazy. Of course, they have reversed them in most states, including New York, for the most part.
Right.
I met a kid that at a railroad when I was running for election on one of my times down in Long Island, and I said, vote for me. He said, I can't. I said, why not? He said, I can't vote for life because I was felonized with marijuana. I had marijuana. That was under Governor Rockefeller's fierce criminal law, criminal penalties for drugs, which didn't make any difference. It's like alcohol. When somebody wants to take something to relax on their own, Fred, why is it that you can't legislate against it? Alcohol, we found it was a disaster, but why didn't they do the same with the other drugs, for God's sake? Put them on a prescription, control them, tax them, if nothing else.
But alcohol is legal.
Sure, it's legal because it was made legal. Marijuana was made illegal. Incidentally, Randall Hearst had illegalized it in the 30s. He had a huge sway in the Congress. Whatever he wanted, he got. They made marijuana illegal, and it was growing all over the country. It was jute, which is, they used it for all kinds of things, and hemp. And then during the war, there was such a need for paper. The reason he legalized it is paper. They make paper out of it, very good quality paper. And he had huge, huge groves of pine trees, millions of acres of pines for paper pulp, and it interfered with his business, and it was a challenge to him. He got it illegalized. Can't raise hemp anymore in this country. And in the meantime, during the war, there was such a pressing need, they reversed that, and they started using it again. After the war, in 1947, Hearst went to work again, had it really illegalized. And of course, it's legal in many states now. It's quasi or legal. And at this point, there's a huge raging argument about it because the people wonder, why are you doing this to us? If a guy goes into a bar and orders a martini, he drinks his martini, another guy comes in, smokes a joint, they grab the guy smoking the joint and put him under arrest, he's off to the jail. What the hell sense does this make?
Well, that's the law.
Well, that's the law. So is it the law to release Negroes from slavery and to let women vote. That's the law. Doesn't mean it's a good law, Fred.
We have more callers?
We got some more callers.
Okay.
Yeah, good morning, caller. I hope you waited.
I think they did read.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Although I'm enjoying your discussion, I'd like to discuss something at the local level with Mr. Crosscut, if I may.
Well, I'm sorry. We're on marijuana now. Go ahead.
Okay. I read recently, I think it was in yesterday's Post-Journal, about the county landfill and the Ellery Town Board passing a moratorium law. This is confusing to many of us. And Fred, can you tell us what the county legislature's position is on this and what happens next? What's going on?
Well, what's happening now that the town of Ellery basically sent a letter a couple months ago that they wanted to put a moratorium on any expansion of the landfill. And right now we're in the process of opening another cell. And so what the moratorium will do is they would like to stop us from doing that. Because there are distinct odors up there that I've heard. Now the fellow that has done the most work with it since he's been elected is Vince Horrigan. So they would like to have that investigated. But what it goes back is many, many years ago, and I think probably it was under Gerasi and maybe Parman and whoever.
Bill Parman was
yeah.
the guy who bought the landfill when he was a county planner, and it happens to be right now, Fred, the biggest potential landfill in the eastern United States. They have a lot of room there.
Right, and so they all agreed to this back then, and no one addressed any other issues. So right now it's falling on our lap of the town of Ellery. And the county planning board representatives have been over there. We're looking at what we can do, having dialogue with the town of Ellery. But in the end, I think you'll find it's a law or statute agreement that was put together. And I guess they'll do the investigation, but I'm not sure the moratorium that the town of Ellery passed at their meeting last week will really hold up in a court of law. But I think that's what they want us to do. They want us to do some studying. I think there's people around the landfill. It's unfortunate that there is an odor there. If in fact there is, I think maybe DEC will do some testing to make sure there's no well contamination and stuff like that. But that's what it is. They put a moratorium on expansion of that landfill, and of course there's much, much more room for that.
It's the largest unused
Exactly.
landfill in the Eastern United States. They almost sold it to Waste Management.
Well,
for a song.
And that's under the Adele administration. They had done that. We have talked about some alternatives for the landfill, but no committee has been set up. But I think now, with the help of Vince Oregon, working with the county executive, it's just important to have dialogue. And that's where we're at right now. We need dialogue with the town of Ellery. We need dialogue with the planning board. County executives involved. Legislatures involved. What in the end result's going to happen, I guess that remains to be seen. But on the other hand, I say this like this: the county can't be held hostage by the town of Ellery, and I say that respectfully, because if we started paying Ellery money, then what's down the road next for us?
Maybe we could do. I think Ellery wants some kind of a compromise, probably. One thing that's been suggested, I don't know whether you heard this, Fred, I'm sure you have. Caller, I'm intruding on your time, I know, was the purchase or partial bailout of the houses around the landfill, which they could get out.
Right.
Unfortunately, when you buy a house by a landfill, you're asking for odors. There's no question about it, and it's a necessary evil. It's like body odor. It's something you gotta have it in order to survive. It's there.
Well, that's Arden Johnson and I went and visited Moreau landfill, county landfill. That's been sold to Costello. And so, okay, I'm not promoting selling our landfill, but the one thing they did, which is maybe going to have to be done, they went around to all these property owners after they bought that landfill and said, listen, we'll buy your house. They gave them the opportunity to purchase the home. I think there was 2 homes bought, one of which they put an office building in it. So my thought is, this is just my thought, and my thought only, fine, how many people around the landfill want to sell their houses? You go in, you figure out an offer, but who pays for it? The county taxpayers.
Yeah, well,
but then the houses are...
Of course, that might be one of the conditions of having a place to dump your garbage. What you got to do? I mean, if we don't have the landfill, it's going to cost us a bunch to ship it off to Taiwan or wherever they're going to ship it.
Well, and if you commercialize it and sell it, it's also going to cost you something, and we are making money there because, don't forget, we have the cogeneration there.
The methane.
The methane.
Yeah.
So we need to work through it. Here again, I think dialogue will continue, but in the end, is that going to be the answer? Who wants to sell their houses and how much are they worth? And the county taxpayers have to pick up the tab.
Has anybody ever done a poll over the house owners around there and said, look, how many of you would like to sell out?
I don't know if they've done a poll, but I certainly know that Vince and the Ellery board are spending some time at this, and I respect what they're
maybe
trying
again
to do.
it'll just be 2 people, like
There might be, I don't know. I really don't know, but I also know that they want to do DEC to come in and do some studies to make sure there aren't any contaminated wells.
Yeah, well, it is. I think that is one of the really modern landfills where they put a containerization center underneath the garbage, so it doesn't seep into the ground water.
Next caller.
Next caller? No caller. Okay.
That's good.
Caller's gone. Okay.
I will say this too, you mentioned the Ice Castle Festival. From what I'm hearing, things are happening down there. There's money very much scaled back from last year.
I'm sure, because of the Ice Castle.
Driving over this morning, I thought, normally I would be down viewing the Ice Castle today and bringing my snowmobile over to maybe a snowmobile parade tonight, but that's not the case. But what a really funny winter we've had, and
it's been. Yeah.
And I make maple syrup, and I'm debating now. We've got our tubing run. When do we tap trees? I know that Mr. Redlecki in Sherman has done some maple syrup production already. But you normally think of the heavy snow depth around in the woods, and as the snow melts, you get moisture into the roots of the trees to take the sap up through and collect it. And I am very concerned about what kind of year it's going to be, not just for me, but then you also have the grape farmers, because my heart lies with agriculture. Sunny days like day before yesterday, what's that tell the grapevines? What's that tell the trees? What's that tell the crocuses in your yard? Even though it's cold, but there's no snow cover.
Start growing.
Yeah, as they start growing. And then the other thing is the lake issue. And, you know, my district I'm very concerned with Chautauqua Lake and the weeds and whatnot. So there's a lot of concerns we can talk about in the future, and maybe even today yet, but other than the county home. But I'm proud of my district, and these are all things that happen. And sales tax revenue, several people have asked me, you know, what is going to be, how much sales tax is going to be reduced?
Right, reduced.
Through not having this snowmobile season. Well,
yeah.
There'll be a reduction.
Yeah, well, we have the big problem, of course, of our county executive called the last year's budget phony. He said what you did was take a lot of the costs that we're going to have to bear for this year and switch them into next year.
We did.
So next year you'll have double the cost. What are you going to do for the money?
Well, that's a good question. It's a good question.
Good
and
question.
I sometimes wished I hadn't supported that budget, but it was going to pass, and we did, and we had made agreement prior to the budget night that night not to cut it back that much, and people came in and decided we could get to the 2%, and we got there. And the one thing that really concerns me is I think we ended up with a $900,000 sales tax increase. That's almost
What's
$1 million
that mean?
bucks.
I mean, increase.
Yeah, I mean in revenue. And we anticipated it. We were going to have a $900,000 increase in revenue. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Oh, no, I don't think it is.
And we took out, speaking of the county home, we took out $500,000 of basically matching funds, IGT funds, so the county home won't get that money. So we did some things because it's on both sides. People complain about the taxes. What are you going to do about it? We try and do things, and we get complained too because we're trying to maybe market the county home and save the taxpayers this county some money. So it's a double-edged sword. You go do the best you can and come up with the answers that hopefully that will give people some information that they desperately want.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like the only way they can raise this huge new double budget is through real estate taxes. And of course, we're already the highest tax county in the United States, period, on a realistic basis. I don't know what's going to happen. Are people going to just have to move or lose their houses? More seniors will lose their houses. They're losing them right and left.
If you move, how much better is it somewhere else? And I, for one, I have real estate, and certainly the last thing we want to do is raise your real property taxes. So it's going to be a very challenging year.
Well, you got rid of the cow farm, right?
Got rid of my dairy farm, but here again, I still maintain property and have built a house and still maintain my agricultural.
A new house, right?
Yeah, well, we manufactured home we put up for my wife and I.
What's that, a side-by-side or something?
Well, basically it's a side-by-side, and they bring in two sides and put it together, and we build a garage and a small porch on it, and then I still have my agricultural business and do cropping and spraying.
Okay, so you do your lot in the grapes then, huh?
Well, not in the grapes. I do everything but the grapes.
Oh, what do you spray?
I spray herbicide on corn ground. I cover about 5,000 to 6,000 acres a year as far as all this corn you see
the corn
around.
for the cattle, right?
Yeah, and
now, who'd you sell the cattle to? The Amish?
an Amish guy.
An Amish guy. They're the only ones, they tell me, who can do it profitably these days for some
Well, it's
reason.
tough. I don't care what you are, whether you're a dairy farmer milking in a parlor or a freestall, but if you're Amish, it's just tough in the agricultural industry as a dairy industry.
The dairy industry still is in real trouble.
It's tough. It's just tough. But I enjoyed it all my life, and you reach the point that you can't do it like you did when you were 25 years old.
Oh, right.
And
yeah, I'm the same way. I have a wood burner now. All my life I've used a wood burner. I mean, all my life just about. And this year it became so laborious for me to stack it all and then bring it in and restack it and fuel the fire. I said I just can't do it. I'm getting too old.
Well, and I priced a new wood burner approved by New York State and to do my house with in my garage, and I was going to be upwards of $15,000 for this new New York State approved system. So I didn't do it. I have propane.
Is that with an outside burner?
Approved by New York State with the new standards, though.
Forget it.
There you go.
$15,000.
Well, that's with the pumps, because I put radiant heat in my basement floor in my garage. I have forced air heat in my house, but that was a plenum and a forced air heater too.
Yeah, boy, that's something. Gone are the days when you could buy a nice little wood burner. They're airtight for about $200.
Yeah, that was back then.
You put it in your living room, though. You don't try to keep it outside.
Yep. So, but anyways, that's and we also got some meetings coming up this week of the committees.
Which are you on?
I'm now chairman of the Planning and Economic Committee. With that goes a duty of being on the IDA board, which I've only been to one meeting.
Tell us what IDA is.
Well, it's an Industrial Development Agency, and it's housed actually in Jamestown. But for example, they do loans for businesses that may want to. They maybe won't get enough money at the bank, but for example, we had a store in Sherman. They got an IDA loan. They brought the store into Sherman. They have employees, and they've now coming back, and we provide a store in Sherman for that group. They do many loans up to $75,000. A lot of it's very confidential, but hopefully as time progresses and I get my feet in the ground with the IDA, I will be able to come back and talk in much broader ranges. It's all volunteer. I'm on that committee because I'm chairman of Planning and Economic. And Bill Daly obviously is the head of the IDA department for the county, and there's a group of volunteers here again that serve on the loan committee. And for example, we just made a significant loan to Southern Tier Brewery. That's a nice showcase for our county because they've done nothing but expand the facility.
Nothing like beer.
Well, we won't get into that either way. I don't want to get you started again. But there's a story where Southern Tier beer continues to be in demand across New York State, and it's been really something that here again the IDA has worked with. So hopefully that's and Cisco. We were talking before the show that Maplevale moved into the Cisco building in Jamestown.
Oh, they deliver a lot of food locally. I know that.
And I know the IDA helped with that. So here again, a lot of stuff is confidential, but a lot of stuff, there's a lot of good things still going on in this county. And here again, as I said before, there are jobs out there. And sometimes you just have to go out and go after them. And for some of these people, you got to make sure you can pass a drug and alcohol test to get the friggin' job in the first place.
Yeah, I know. When they have both of us on, it's funny how TV does tricks. If you're on the right side, you always seem smaller than you really are. You notice?
Well, you are smaller. My Lord, you are smaller, aren't you?
What a difference between you and me.
Maybe you need a taller chair.
Well, I can still say you're a big man in the legislature.
Well, yeah, I guess.
And incidentally, I have to just recapitulate on one thing. I had the minority leader on last week, who is Lori Cornell. And I had Jay Gould, who is Goulding, who is not a railroad man, but he is the leader, chairman now, a position you held for quite a while. Yeah. And now I had Fred Crosscut on, and I asked every one of them, what are we going to do to raise all this money that we're going to have coming up for this new budget? It looks like it's only taxes, and every one of you had the same reply.
Raise taxes.
Nope, I don't know.
Well, the only alternative is
the only alternative, of course.
Well, is to raise taxes or look at what you can consolidate.
Yeah.
And here again, I bring up the county home. We've got to address the financial end of it and why we're losing the money. And you and I talked earlier about some of the information financially isn't available. I find that probably not quite correct.
That's not to me. I never looked for it, but I was told this by two different people.
I think we got 6 minutes left. In this proposal that went out, and here again, I just got this week in the legislature, that is offer memorandum for the county home. There is some financial data in here.
That just came out, though.
Yeah, right? That just came out this week.
So you can't blame them for saying we couldn't get anything.
Well, I'm not sure the information you really want is all in here, but I know the budget's public information, so I would encourage, and I think this committee will bring a lot to what we're trying to do.
Okay, well,
because I don't care if it's my wife or Reed Powers, people want more information. And their avenue that the legislature took is to form this committee. I only hope it doesn't turn into be a real fiasco.
I gather, I agree with you. I hope it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, Fred, getting up to some of the other little things that I hear about, people call about.
Sure.
There was a proposal in the legislature to limit the hunting to within 1,000 feet now of cars. It's 500 now, which is of any road or any house. And the conservation clubs are telling me this would basically ban all hunting in the county, because everywhere you hunt is within 1,000 feet of a house or a car of cars.
That's true, and that's a proposal that was put through by Mr. Duff. So far, it hasn't gone anywhere.
He's the one that's tough.
Yeah, well, he hasn't. He's put it through, and it hasn't went anywhere. But bear in mind, folks that are listening, this whole proposal of the rifles will be looked at a year from now. Give it some time. The other thing, you realize we've been hunting with the rifles on small game for years.
Hell yes, and it's never bothered anybody.
And
it's been in all the rest of the country, excepting for Chautauqua County.
Exactly. So just respect landowners' rights. If you took that 1,000 feet from places, there may be a 20-acre block that you couldn't hunt that you used to go in there and hunt, just because it's such a large area and there are houses there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's not going to go anywhere. But,
okay, well, I'm glad to hear that, because
that's my opinion.
That's what everybody's saying. It's kind of almost insane. It would ban hunting most of the county.
True.
And again, your point is well taken. I haven't heard that one before as an argument for not being scared to death by rifles. They've been using rifles for small game for years. Incidentally, 30-30s, you could use anything,
And one thing you haven't brought up yet, and we have 4 minutes left, is there is a proposal up this week to set up a redistricting committee. As you know, we need to get down to 19 members, and it says 19 or less, but I think it'll end up at 19. That's what I'm supporting. And there is, if it takes an independent committee to get this thing through, I'll go along with it. But as you know, I was very involved a year ago. We thought we had an agreement. We didn't. The only thing that I'll stand firm on is no less than 19, because here again, many of my constituents say, Fred, we like you. We like the number 25. We don't feel it's a problem. You show up to meetings. You answer our questions. But we will end up at 19. How those districts are set up remains to be seen now. Obviously, we'll take a look at them. This committee will take a look at them, and they'll come out with a recommendation by June.
And let's hope that you don't lose your seat.
Well, you run wherever you have to run. I enjoy what I'm doing. I like to think I'll make a difference. So we'll see where it goes. On the other hand, if we have some people we know aren't running, maybe we should look at those districts. And I don't want to be called political, but if we know we have people in 2 years that aren't running, let's take a look at that district so you maybe don't offend.
So there's no pain.
Or there's no pain. And so we'll see where it goes and talk about it.
That's an interesting way of doing it, is just say, hey, if we have a non-incumbent here, let's throw that one into the hat.
Yeah, and look at that district. But on the other hand, I'm representing Chautauqua Lake now. I'll say this very sincerely. Vince Morgan and I want to continue to represent Chautauqua Lake.
Okay, you're going to still represent the lake. God bless you. Thank you very much for giving up your Saturday morning. You come again soon?
Whenever you call me.
Okay, well, Mr. Gould did a wonderful job, but he said he doesn't particularly like to do it. You do. You're good at it.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm Fred, and that's who I am.
Okay, well, as long as we have both sides, we have Lori Cornell and we have you, and occasionally Mr. Goulding, we'll be all set.
Sure, you get dialogue. You get debate, and that's a good thing.
March 1st, deadline. Do not forget it, senior citizens. That's the deadline. It's over. So make it the 29th of April. What is it, 30th of April? It's January, February, March, April. 30th of April. Yeah. You get your, not April, February, this month.
February.
2 weeks. Get your star in by the end of this month, February, because it'll save you a bundle. And you have to have a special meeting. You got to show them your state taxes. You got to sit down. You got to fill out a form. It's not a big deal, and they help you with it. Especially Bonnie over in Westfield, very helpful. I wanted to thank all the people who called in, and sorry, last caller, you'll get your chance next month maybe, or whenever we have Fred wrong. I've tried your maple syrup. It's wonderful stuff.
Well, good.
It's liquid gold.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Fred, we'll see you again soon. And I want to thank special people here: Chuck Kelsey, Devin Taylor, Chris Bird, Randy Bird, Chris Ramaker, Jeff Zook, our chief engineer, Don Zenz, our photographer, and Randy Bird, again, because he's a photographer, engineer, and everything else. He runs around, does all kinds of things. He even puts my mic on for me. John Hamels, and I want to thank all the people that called in and are listening and viewing. Get out there, give your sweetheart a Valentine's gift, a card. Anyway, try to make it by hand, and get out there and love and dance and sing and play in the snow. May all that is proud and true and noble I'm Reed Powers.